by you as possible, but I will try to talk you through so as not to strain your eyes if in fact that they are strained. So go to that next slide, if you will. Way back in 2010, and many of you were here in 2010, there was a special called business meeting in May the 23rd, for the purpose of voting on a family life building committee. Some of these names you will recognize. Some of them are no longer a part of Emory Baptist Church. Ken Beck, Stacy Campbell, Leah Christian, Brad Cobb, Dave Craddock, Chris Harris, Addie Johnson, Brennan Potts, Matt Smith, and Megan Smith. Matt, do you remember that 11 years ago? So those committee members, 11 years ago, 2 original members remain: Brad Cobb and Matt Smith. The Family Life Center committee has evolved more than once since then. So the church approved that committee. May the 15th of 2011, there was a special called business meeting to vote by secret ballot on buying the Pat Gilbreth property at 206 North Ravine Street. The church voted 71%, 99 in favor and 42 against, to purchase that property. So here is where I will try to do my best to demonstrate. Okay, so if you can see my red laser, this right here is Ronnie's house. This right here is our north parking lot. This right here is our existing facility with our main building, and there we are right there. Here's our education building. Here is Memorial Hall. Here is our children's building. So here is Planters Street going north. Here is North Street. Here is our south parking lot. And here is Ravine Street going north. From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, the Pat Gilbreth property is this long rectangle right here that we purchased way back in 2011. It stretches from Ravine Street and goes all the way over to this fence line. And this right here is the American Legion Hall. Right there. Everybody have a frame of reference of where we are considering and looking. So again, Robert, if you'll back up one slide, 2011, May the 15th, we voted to purchase that long, narrow strip of property. And if you'll go back to the map, again, right here. And currently, so I believe that there was a house there, and we had that house demolished or removed or cleared or whatever. And now, right there, there's a big burn pile. And as soon as it dries out, we'll get that gone. Okay? All right, next slide. April the 15th, 2012, the Family Life Center Committee, Brother Robert Burns, in the absence of Matt. Matt, why weren't you here that night? Brought a report that the committee is working on plans for the Family Life Center and getting everything ready before presenting it to the church. Fast forward 2 years. March the 16th, 2014, Jack Lyle brought 2 recommendations from the Committee on Committees to rename the building committee to the Family Life Building Committee. And that motion was seconded and carried. And then minutes also from a regular business meeting, August the 17th, 2014. Brother Jimmy Tarrant, there's a name perhaps you haven't thought about in a while. Brother Jimmy Tarrant, very faithful interim pastor that led our church well between Brother Joe and myself. So there was a resolution that was presented and approved. And here's what the resolution said. Be it resolved that Emory Baptist Church's priority be to retire the current building debt. That would be the debt on this building. This building, the office, that includes the office as well as the fellowship hall. To retire the current building debt before acquiring a debt on a new building. Be it further resolved that the church promote fundraising campaigns to encourage members to sacrificially give over and above their current tithes and offerings to reduce and eliminate the current debt. So that motion was made and seconded, and I'm sure there was some lively discussion. And that motion carried in 2014. So just for a frame of reference, I began meeting and speaking and dealing with the pastor search committee in September, the very next month, after this resolution was presented and approved in 2014. Okay? Also, from that same meeting, a motion that the church build a Family Life Center under the direction of the church-elected Family Life Center Committee and any other subcommittees needed to complete the project. Motion was seconded. There was discussion. Again, I'm sure lively discussion. And the motion carried. So, when people say, has our church voted to build a Family Life Center? Yes, we have. Back in August of 2014. Now, the details of carrying out such, obviously those are to come and to follow. But our church, in that setting of August 2014, said, when we retire our debt, we want to build a Family Life Center. August 17th, 2014, an opportunity has become available to the church for property to build the Family Life Center. The property is adjoined to property currently owned by the church. By purchasing this additional property, the church will have room to build the facility and add additional parking around the building. So here's another piece of property. Oh, before we get there, go back one slide, please. Can you go back one? There we go. That's it right there. No, that's not it. One more. There we go. Family Life Center Committee makes a motion that the church purchase the property at 216 North Ravine Street for not more than $30,000 plus closing costs using funds that have been designated for the Family Life Center. It was seconded, and there was discussion, and there are the dimensions of the property, and the motion carried. So now, if that map, please, sir. So the first piece of property was, again, this long, narrow strip. The second piece of property that was just referenced is here. Okay? It doesn't go all the way to the corner, and it doesn't go all the way back to the fence, but it does adjoin. So in total, on this block, and if you'll follow that red laser, it goes, this is the property that we own across the street. Right after I came, in 2015, that trailer house was removed. And if you were to go look at that property now, there is still, the corner is relatively vacant, but then there's an old barn right here, and perhaps you can see that driveway right there, or at least a slab, and then maybe something else. But again, Emory Baptist Church owns all of this, those two lots together. July of 2017, Emory Baptist Church became debt-free, having completed paying off in its entirety this building. We were trying to think in the Family Life Center Committee meeting earlier this afternoon. So that's about 5 or 6 years, roughly, to pay off this main building is what that took. And, you have to consider having an interim pastor during a portion of that time, which that makes a difference. So that we were grateful and thankful to get the building, the debt retired. So here are some long-range planning committee recommendations from January of 2018 from Long-Range Planning Committee Chairman Dempsey Bullock and members Randy Cole, Phyllis McCulick, Charlotte Raby, Don Smith, and Stoner Smith. Mrs. Rice, there's a name that we know. Mrs. Rice's house will be moved by March the 1st. If this doesn't happen, it will revert back to the responsibility of the Building and Grounds Committee for removal. We are grateful and thankful that Mrs. Rice deeded her corner lot to us, and that was more than kind and generous, and we did have that house moved and that lot cleared. This pertains to Brother Ronnie's house, which we have since renovated completely. Next slide. The establishment of a capital fundraising committee for the Family Life Center is referred to the Committee on Committees, and that has been referred to them. And the discussion of a placement of the Family Life Center will be referred to the Family Life Center Committee and the Building and Grounds Committee, and that has been referred to them. So here in 2018, again, some new members of the Family Life Center Committee: Matt Smith, remaining chairman; Brad Cobb, Dave Craddock, Leah Christian, Christy Sisk, Lisa Velasquez, and Cody Wallace. December the 30th of 2019, Bill and Bridget Wright made an offer to sell their house and lot to Emory Baptist Church for $100,000. January and February of 2020, the Wright property was purchased and cleared. And the Family Life Center Committee, as it is today, approved by you in our December 2020 members meeting: Matt Smith, chairman; John Rouse, vice chairman; Brigitta Heiser, secretary; Lynette Beaver, Brad Cobb, Robert Harris, Lisa Velasquez, members. For various reasons through the years, some of those folks who were on that committee previously are no longer at Emory Baptist Church. Some of those who are at Emory Baptist Church have stepped down, again, for various reasons. And so we have a working committee moving forward. At this point, also in December, we voted to allow the Family Life Center Committee to select and hire an architect from the Family Life Center Fund, and I'll give you an update on that in just a moment. And so in January of 2021, the Family Life Center Committee begins to hear from the church what they think God's purpose is for our Family Life Center through bulletin insert submission and listening sessions. Is that the last slide, Robert? Will you go back to either of the maps? Okay, so just here was Mrs. Rice's house and property here on the corner. So this is the northeast corner of this block. So now this lot is ours and cleared, and then here is the right property that is ours and cleared. So Emory Baptist Church owns this entire block. Here is our south parking lot again. Here is the pastor's parsonage right there, so you don't see the full and complete picture, but you see a little bit of it. And then again, the portion here off of Ravine Street. All right. So, again, for many of you, that may be old information. For others of you, that may be new information. Regardless, we wanted to communicate that information for you, and again, to remind people of where we have been and how did we get to where we are today. So I want to give you just a little bit of an update. In the month of January, through the bulletin inserts, we received 12 returned. In the month of February, we received an additional 17 returned, both by bulletin insert and through our church website. So if you submitted a bulletin insert or on digital form through our church website, we're grateful and thankful for that. I feel like that there are plenty of people who are simply trusting the Family Life Center Committee to pool their resources and their knowledge and their experience to share with an architect to then bring to our congregation. So that may have played into you submitting or not submitting that one of those surveys. But we want to allow you to have a portion in our second listening session tonight. So our Family Life Center Committee, or many of them are here tonight. Matt Smith and Secretary Brigetta Heiser and Lynette Beaver and Robert Harris. John Rouse and Brad Cobb are not here tonight, and Lisa Velasquez is with our GAs in our children's building. But if you would like to share something tonight as it relates to what you think God's purpose is for our Family Life Center, or what you would like to see it include, we want to give you the opportunity to share that tonight. And we'll get you a microphone so you can do that. Anyone? Barbie? You are. But I would like for you to use a microphone, please, so we'll get that to you.
This is just a question about, in those two areas of land that we own, has it been decided where the Family Life Center will be?
Brother Matt, do you want to answer that question? Can you take the microphone to him, Eric, please?
I don't know that we formally voted on it, but the thought process has been right here on this corner where the Wright property is, over to Miss Rice's property.
I 100% agree with his answer. We have not formally and officially decided, but I will tell you that when the Wright property became available and was purchased and cleared, and adjoining the Rice property and clearing both of them, that made possible at least what I was hoping, and I'll just speak for myself. Anyone else? What is God's purpose, or what would you like to see included? Any submitted online? Okay. Teresa Runyon, yes, ma'am.
I wondered if we had considered using that facility at any time if something occurred again, like our Snowmageddon, when people were having no water, if we were going to have any type of shower facilities in that building where we could, open it up for people if need be.
As a matter of fact, we just talked about that this evening, and the potential to be used for exactly what you just said. If you are on Facebook or whatever media outlet you use, you saw last week, 2 weeks ago, that the city of Point and some other surrounding areas were extended periods of time without water. And Emory City Center opened, and there was shower facilities that were made available that way. Rains ISD gym and locker rooms were made available for their shower facilities. And then you probably also saw other churches during that time that became the phrase that I most often saw was a warming center. That maybe it was to, that there were some to spend the night, for sure. I know First Baptist Farmersville had people spending the night in their Family Life Center without power, without water. But there was the use of shower facilities. There may have been just the use of electricity to charge devices or to get warm for a while. So yes, we did talk about that this afternoon, about how that could be used in the future if we had those type of facilities. Yes, ma'am. Barbie.
Could you or Matt share some of what you have discussed, and maybe that would generate more questions and more thought?
Sure.
I mean,
Matt, you can go first. As Matt is getting the microphone, we have, of course, immediately what comes to mind in most people is some type of ball court. But I want to be on record as saying we're not simply putting up a metal building and buying basketball goals from Walmart. That's not what we're talking about here. Okay? We're talking about a multi-purpose facility that matches our existing buildings and can be used as an outreach tool in our community, as well as furthering the existing and new ministries of Emory Baptist Church. So yes, it probably will include some type of court or multiple courts. People have talked about indoor walking tracks. First Baptist Lindale has that in their facility. We've talked about a staged area for concerts or meeting, if forever there was the outgrowing of this particular facility, or just the need to transition something, to be able to have a staged area and platform to meet in there on a Sunday morning. We've talked about what you might call a fellowship hall, a larger fellowship hall, or maybe, no, a smaller area than if you just opened up a gym floor. We've talked about what some might call a chapel that would accommodate a smaller funeral or a smaller wedding compared to this room. Talked about a commercial kitchen. We've talked about showers and locker room space. We've talked about fitness room with exercise equipment. We've talked about multiple education rooms for adults, for youth. We've talked about ample storage. We've talked about storage for our vehicles, our church vehicles. Anything, Matt, that I may have left out?
No, I think you've got most all of it. If you want to go over some of the suggestions, one of the suggestions given this week was a smaller facility like the chapel that could be used. Oh, one of the suggestions this week was for the smaller chapel to be used for a second language service, so maybe like a Spanish-speaking service. And I think you've got hit about everything else.
I had not thought about that or considered that, but I thought that's a great idea. Pardon me? What about acoustics? Well, that also came up this afternoon, and I would say, generally speaking, gymnasiums, i.e. Rains High School or wherever, that's not their first priority. But that certainly could be a priority with the floor and the ceiling and what type of material is used on the wall to make the acoustics appropriate even for a room like that. So, yes, we are thinking about that to make sure that it is a better experience than perhaps what you normally think of in a gymnasium. Yes, ma'am, Mary Ann Walker. Hold on 1 second, please.
Do we have generators, you know when they had the rolling electricity that went on? Do we have generators that keep the electricity on? Would that be something we'd need over there?
Potentially, I think it is something that we can need. I don't think that we do in this facility. I will tell you the only, as far as I know, in this building, and I'm not speaking about these three, but in this building, the only day that the electricity was off was the day that this auditorium flooded. Every other day, our electricity was on. So, but that is certainly something for us to think about and consider in the construction of a new facility. It's a good thought. Somebody else? Anyone? Did that jog anybody's memory or generate any more thought? Barbie?
Do you see it being open, I'm sure not 24 hours, but like 8 in the morning till 10 at night? Or we would have to have someone there, wouldn't we?
Most definitely we would have an additional staff member that would be included in their job description and responsibility. No to 24 hours, but certainly more than our Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5 office hours, for sure. Brother Wayne.
One of the slides said the committee was discussing an architect. Can you tell us anything about that yet?
I can. The Family Life Center Committee our desire, in the month of March, taking all that you have shared with us and submitted, and selecting an architect from 2 that we are wanting to interview, one of which would be Godwin and Associates that we have worked with most recently with our front foyer renovation and our elevator, and a larger firm out of Tyler that one of our committee members has experience with. And our goal, our hope, is to decide on one by the end of March and or the 1st of April. And again, the church has already given the approval for the committee to choose that firm and to secure them financially. Great question. Betty Clifton. No, ma'am, you cannot.
Would that property accommodate a building that would have all these things in it?
We're going to find out.
'Cause that'd be a huge building.
It will be. It will be. And I'm grateful and thankful for the property that we have ownership of. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about that little chapel, I think that's a wonderful idea, but would they have like a separate entrance? I mean, you would almost want it to have its own entrance on a corner of the building or something
Potentially.
like that,
Potentially.
where if there is a funeral or wedding, where they don't have to walk through the gym to get to the
Absolutely.
chapel.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. 100%. Are you getting ready to speak, Mrs. Hooten? All right. Hold on one second, please.
The few family life centers that I've been in, maybe 3 or 4, 2 of them had, as you came in the entrance, there was like an office, not small, like you had a large foyer room that broke off into the other rooms, but there was an office and they had glass in the front, and that had been added to one of them due to security now. To make sure. But someone, of course, is there, paid
Yes.
staff,
Yes.
I think from like 9 to 5, 4 days a week at the one that they added it in. So I think we need something like that. Not something large, but it's got a glass front with a pass-through.
Right. So it serves as protection for that individual, but also for kind of the gatekeeper, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
For the rest of the facility.
Yes, and they
ma'am.
also make reservations, do stuff like that, inquire, you have check-in with them, like if you're going to walk, or et cetera.
Everything that falls under the Family Life Center goes through a particular person.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you tonight for your participation in that. And even though you may not have shared in either of the listening sessions or even submitting something in writing, I do want you to know the Family Life Center Committee is accessible to you. Grab them in the hallway. Send them an email or a text message. And if you don't have their phone number or email, I do. And I can give it to you. And they would be glad to receive your text or phone call or email. So please, please, please don't think that the time for suggestions or encouragement is over, because it is not. And they welcome your input. Okay? All right, we are now going to